They say the scariest stories are the ones that really happened. Tonight, you will hear 4 true horror stories, tales told by people who swore every word was real. Some of them vanished, some were never the same again, but all of them began just like this. Welcome to Scary True Horror Stories, where reality meets nightmare. Each of these tales comes from real people, real places, and real terror. If you're a fan of global horror, dark legends, and cursed myths from around the world, subscribe now and join our haunted family, because what you're about to hear will stay with you forever. Part 1. The Watcher's Window. Every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., someone or something stood outside my window, watching. The police never found anyone, but I saw the face, pale, smiling, waiting. My name is Eleanor Marks, and I used to live in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of Portland, Oregon. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect horror to happen. Families walked dogs, kids played in yards, and neighbors waved at each other like some postcard version of America. But everything changed the night I moved into the White House on Greystone Lane. The house had stood empty for almost 2 years. The real estate agent told me the previous owners moved suddenly. Family emergency, she said, eyes darting away. I didn't think much of it. The price was good. Too good. The first week was peaceful, quiet. But by the second week, I started noticing something wrong. It began with footsteps outside my window, soft, deliberate steps, like someone pacing in the grass just beneath my bedroom. When I looked out, there was nothing, just the dark silhouette of trees swaying in the fog. Then came the tapping. At first faint, tap, tap, tap. Always at the same time, 3:17 a.m. I thought it might be branches or an animal, until one night I saw it. A face pressed against the glass, white, expressionless, eyes black as oil. I screamed and turned on the light, but the face was gone. The curtain moved slightly, like someone had brushed it from the other side. I called the police. They searched around the house. No footprints, no signs of anyone there. Maybe it was a nightmare, the officer said, but it wasn't. The next night, I set up my phone to record video. I positioned it facing the window and went to sleep, heart pounding. When I woke up the next morning, the video was still recording, but the phone had been moved. It was lying on my bedside table, facing the wall. And when I checked the footage, my blood ran cold. At 3:17 a.m., the video showed my window slowly sliding open. A pale hand reached inside, followed by a figure, tall, thin, with no hair, and a face that didn't look human. It turned toward the camera, its eyes wide and unblinking, and smiled. Then the video cut to black. I ran out of the house that morning and didn't return for 2 days. When I finally gathered the courage to come back, I found something waiting on the window ledge, a small, handwritten note. "Thank you for letting me in." The Descent. I decided to move out immediately, but packing took time. I stayed in a hotel for 3 nights before returning to collect the rest of my things. When I entered the bedroom, the air was cold, freezing. The window was open again, curtains fluttering. On the wall, written in what looked like dried mud or something darker, were 5 words. Don't forget to wave back. My neighbor, Mrs. Lowe, saw me that day and asked me if I was okay. When I told her what happened, her face went pale. She whispered, "Oh dear, you didn't know? The man who lived there before you, he was found dead in that same room, sitting by the window, smiling." I didn't go back. The police still list my case as unsubstantiated. They say I imagined it, that the video must have been edited or glitched. But I know what I saw. Now, every time I stay somewhere new, I make sure the curtains are closed tight before I sleep. Because when the night is silent, and I hear that faint, slow tapping sound, tap, 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 I can't help but wonder if he found another window to watch from. If you're a fan of horror from around the world, real legends and terrifying tales, subscribe now and join our haunted family, because this is just the beginning of our nightmares together.
Part 2. The Cabin That Calls Your Name. He heard his own name whispered in the woods again, but this time the voice came from inside the cabin he swore didn't exist. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend in the mountains of Oregon. 4 friends, Mark, Emily, Josh, and Lisa, had rented a remote cabin deep within the forest, far away from any signs of civilization. The road to the cabin was nothing but gravel and mud, and even the GPS lost signal halfway there. As they arrived, the tall pines towered above them, their needles whispering in the cold evening wind. The cabin stood quietly in the middle of the trees, its wooden walls aged, its windows dark and hollow, like eyes watching from the shadows. Josh laughed nervously. "Man, this looks like every horror movie ever made." Lisa smirked, pulling her scarf tighter. "Relax, we need a break. No phones, no noise, just nature." But as night fell and the wind grew stronger, Mark began to hear it, a faint voice echoing between the trees. It was saying his name. Mark. At first, he thought it was one of his friends joking, but when he stepped outside and found the others asleep, the whisper came again, softer, closer, from behind him. The cabin's call. The next morning, Mark looked pale and sleep-deprived. He told the group about the whisper, but they brushed it off as a dream. Emily teased, "Maybe Bigfoot wants to be your friend." But that night, the whisper came again. Only this time, it wasn't alone. Mark heard the creak of footsteps outside the cabin, slow, deliberate. He grabbed a flashlight and looked out through the window. There were footprints in the snow, circling the cabin, stopping right beneath his window. Then he heard it clearly. A knock. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Josh jumped out of bed furious. "Who the hell is out there?" He opened the door and froze. There was no one outside, just the endless forest and something carved into the wooden door. "Let me in, Mark." The Descent into Madness. Over the next 2 days, the group started arguing. The food ran low, the generator flickered, and strange noises came from the attic, even though the cabin had no attic when they arrived. Emily found an old, dust-covered journal hidden under one of the floorboards. The entries were written by someone named Samuel Voss, dated 1974. The last entry read, "The cabin wants names. It calls until you answer. I heard mine last night. I'm going inside to tell it to stop. If anyone finds this, don't follow the voice." That night, the whisper became unbearable. All 4 heard it this time, their names, one after another, echoing from the woods. Mark, Emily, Josh, Lisa. The air grew heavy, and the cabin seemed to breathe, the walls expanding and contracting with each whisper. Then the door creaked open by itself, and from the darkness beyond it a faint light glowed, like the outline of another cabin, deeper in the woods. Mark felt a pull, a compulsion to walk toward it. His eyes glazed over. "It's calling me," he whispered. The final night. Emily and Josh tried to stop him, but when they turned, Lisa was gone. Her footprints led into the forest, straight toward the glowing shape. Screams echoed through the trees. The whisper turned into laughter. When they finally reached the source, they saw the cabin again, identical to theirs, but older, rotten, covered in frost and moss. Inside they found Lisa's body, still, eyes open, mouth frozen in a scream. The journal was on the floor beside her, a new line added. She answered. Now it calls for more. Mark felt something crawl into his ear, a cold voice whispering, "Now you belong here." The next morning, hikers found their abandoned car and an empty cabin, no signs of struggle, except for one strange thing carved into the wood above the door. The cabin that calls your name. The camera pans over the quiet forest, a new group of campers laughing in the distance, approaching the same road. Their GPS stops working, and from somewhere between the trees, a faint voice whispers again, "Mark."
Part 3. The House That Watches You Sleep. They said the house was empty for 30 years, but every night the curtains moved as if someone inside was watching. On the edge of a small town in Vermont, surrounded by dead trees and a field that no one dared to cross after sunset, stood an abandoned house. Locals called it the Watcher's Home. For decades, people claimed to see movement behind its windows, faint silhouettes, flickering lights, and once even the shape of a face pressed against the glass. No one lived there, not since the Harrington family vanished without a trace in 1989. But when Ethan Miles, a real estate photographer, arrived one cold winter morning to document the property for auction, he thought it was all small-town superstition. He was wrong. The assignment. Ethan unlocked the rusty gate and stepped through the overgrown path. The house loomed before him, 2 stories high, windows shattered, paint peeling like old skin. His camera blinked red as he started recording. "Piece of cake," he muttered. "Just photos, in and out." Inside, the air smelled like mold and ash. Every step on the floorboards echoed like a heartbeat. The house felt alive. He raised his camera, but through the lens, something flickered. A reflection in the hallway mirror. He turned around. Nothing there. When he lowered the camera, the reflection was still smiling at him. The house remembers. By the second hour, he noticed strange things. The furniture had changed position between shots. The fireplace had ashes, though no one had been there in decades. And then, upstairs, he found the bedroom, perfectly preserved. The bed was made. A teddy bear sat neatly at the pillow. The calendar on the wall still marked December 12, 1989, the night the Harringtons disappeared. He checked his phone. 6:45 p.m. Outside, the sun was gone. When he turned back toward the window, the curtains were drawn shut, even though he hadn't touched them. Then came a whisper. "Go to sleep." He froze. The voice was faint, childlike, echoing through the vents. Ethan backed away toward the stairs, but every time he blinked, the lights in the hallway turned on, one by one, leading him back to the bedroom. The eyes in the walls. The moment he stepped back into the room, the camera light flickered. He looked through the lens and gasped. Hundreds of eyes carved into the wallpaper, painted, drawn in ink and blood, covering every inch of the walls. They blinked. A loud bang came from the closet. He aimed his flashlight. The door creaked open. Inside was a pile of dolls, all missing their eyes. One of them moved its head. "We see you, Ethan." He screamed, dropped the camera, and bolted downstairs, but the front door was gone. The hallway stretched endlessly, the floor twisting like a maze. The portraits on the walls all turned to face him as he ran. The final footage. Hours later, a police team found Ethan's car parked outside the house, engine running, door open, the camera still recording. The video was 3 hours long. In the footage, Ethan can be seen exploring the house, calm at first. Then the lights flicker and he begins screaming. But at the 2-hour mark, something changes. He stops screaming. He stands perfectly still in the living room. Then he slowly turns toward the camera, his eyes black and hollow, and says, "Don't look away. She's behind you." The screen cuts to static. In the final frame, for less than half a second, a woman's face appears, pale, smiling, her eyes wide open. The police later confirmed there was no woman in the footage when analyzed frame by frame. Yet somehow, her reflection appeared in every mirror inside the house. And every night since, the curtains of that same window still move, as if someone inside is watching, waiting for the next visitor to fall asleep. The camera pans over the empty house at night. The window on the second floor glows faintly, and for a moment a shadow moves across it. Go to sleep. Then darkness. The sound of a camera shutter echoes once.
Part 4. The Last Call. When the phone rings from the dead. When the phone rang at 3:07 a.m., Emily answered. The voice on the other end wasn't alive anymore. They say the dead can't call the living, but every small town has a legend about that one phone line that never went dead, even after the storm, the fire, or the murders. In the quiet town of Ashburn, there was an old payphone by the edge of the forest near the abandoned gas station. It hadn't been connected to any network since 1998, yet people still heard it ring, always at the same time, 3:07 a.m. Most ignored it, but Emily Carter, a night shift security guard, didn't. The first call. Emily was patrolling the deserted highway when she heard it, a faint metallic ringing echoing from across the field. She followed the sound until she saw it, a cracked payphone, half buried in weeds, its receiver swaying in the cold wind. Ring, ring, ring. She hesitated. Then slowly she picked it up. Hello? For a moment, only static, then a whisper. Emily, don't hang up. Her blood froze. Who is this? The voice was broken, like it came through water. You shouldn't be here. They're behind you. She turned around. Nothing. When she looked back, the line was dead. The recording. The next day, Emily told her coworker Derek, who laughed it off. Probably some kid pranking you, he said. But when they went back to the payphone that night, Derek brought a small voice recorder. 3:07 a.m. came. The phone rang again. This time, Derek answered. All right, who is this? Static. Then a voice, low, almost demonic. You shouldn't have brought someone else. The line cut. They played back the recording later. The whisper wasn't one voice. It was dozens, overlapping, men, women, children, all saying the same thing in unison. They're coming. That's when the power in their patrol car died. Over the following nights, Emily started hearing faint ringing even when she was at home. In her dreams, she saw a line of people standing in the forest, all facing away, all holding telephones to their ears. Every dream ended the same way. They turned their heads toward her at once. On the fifth night, she unplugged every device in her house. But at exactly 3:07 a.m., her cell phone lit up. The caller ID, unknown number. She answered, trembling. Who are you? What do you want? The voice replied, We want you to remember. The next morning, Emily visited the town library to find old records of the gas station. There had been an explosion there in 1998. A tanker caught fire, killing 12 people instantly. The only survivor was a young girl named Emily Carter. But Emily didn't remember any of it. She rushed to the payphone that night again, desperate for answers. Tell me who I am, she screamed into the receiver. The static grew louder, then turned into faint sobbing. You survived. We didn't. You promised you'd stay with us. The line went silent. Then, slowly, she heard the voices whisper, It's time to come home. The phone cord wrapped around her wrist on its own, tight, cutting her skin, pulling her closer. She struggled, screamed, and then the camera feed from her patrol car cut out completely. 2 days later, the police found the payphone melted and twisted. The receiver was fused to the ground, and Emily's patrol car sat empty nearby. The only thing inside was her phone, still recording. The last 7 seconds of audio were analyzed by technicians. It contained the sound of hundreds of voices whispering the same phrase over and over. She finally answered. At 3:07 a.m. every night since, the phone rings again. And if you answer it, the line doesn't hang up. It just breathes.
If your phone rings tonight at 3:07 a.m., don't answer, because sometimes the dead remember your number. If you enjoyed this terrifying true horror story, subscribe, like the video, and comment below the story you want to hear next. Your idea might be the next nightmare we bring to life.